Greetings Tarnished and welcome to the video. Today I will be walking you through one of my runs from the Elden Ring Nightreign network test in detail, hopefully showing you what a typical run will look like and how this game plays overall, as it's quite different than the base game. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Each run begins with the character selection, and for this test we were able to play as 4 different heroes, but in the full game there will be 8, with more coming in its future DLC. I pick Wilder as he is my favorite from the selection and is the cover boy for this game. A little note is you can have duplicates of the same character on your team, and for this run we have 2 Wilders and a Recluse. Alright, now immediately as we are flying in, we already begin to pin locations to go to, and in this case it is the nearest church, as sacred tears are still found there and give you 1 extra flask for each one you find, so they are an important location to factor into your runs. Next you will see we all wipe this camp pretty fast, as getting enough runes for your first level up is very important, as the bonus health and damage are most noticeable then. After that we all run up to the church and grab the extra flask. Now the massacre begins. We head to the nearest camp and we immediately jump the boss with our abilities, and he is dead before he knows it. After you defeat any boss, you get to pick one of 3 options, and in this case, because the weapons or their buffs didn't interest me, I went for the general physical damage buff, as you can't go wrong with that. Now this is where me and my randoms split up. This can be smart, as you will get more runes this way because everyone gets runes when an enemy is defeated, but it's also bad because not everyone gets to select a reward from a boss, as they will not be there to get it. So you have to weigh the pros and cons when splitting off, and here I thought it would be a better use of my time, and I was confident that I could steamroll the boss of this castle by myself. You will see that I am running past a lot of the smaller enemies, and that is because when I'm by myself it would just take too long to clear out this room, and so I'd much rather spend my time beating the boss quickly, getting its reward, and moving on. So after beating this boss I get 2 pretty bad options, but I take the Venomous Fang as it gives me a passive bonus of improved fire negation, and that may be helpful in the future. Then I level up super quickly and grab what this game calls a local clue. These clues can give you the whereabouts of some wandering bosses or even scarabs that hold talismans, so they can be helpful if you find one. But my plan for now is to head over to another church as fast as possible before it gets cut off by the storm. I changed my mind as the storm is already coming and I want to meet up with my team, so I mark the central castle to meet up at. Once again I take a detour and go help my teammate who is down by a boss. In this game you just need to whack their crawling body in order to revive them, but each successive revive requires more hits to work, so it seems pretty balanced to me. Then after killing this sanguine noble with my ultimate and other assorted bashing, I grab the HP buff and we move on. Here you can see we got caught in the storm, but it really is not much of a threat as it does minimal damage, and so it's more of a suggestion to move than anything you really need to worry about. Alas, we finally make it to the castle, and here there are 2 bosses. The first was this lion that me and the Recluse dealt with quickly. Then after getting a poise buff, I ran to the second boss, who was a misbegotten. Again, I wanted to deal with these quickly as we were right on the edge of the storm, so excuse the incredibly greedy playstyle that I have been and will continue to showcase. He gave me an increased stamina recovery speed, and then we went on our way to meet up with our 3rd teammate. Here you can see how fast the vaulting really is, and that is the sound of the storm coming in. Once again I get sidetracked with the boss, and you might notice I am still using my starter weapon. And honestly, these starter weapons are more than enough to get you through the run, and what really matters are your passive buffs and your level. That is not to say there is no reason to get better weapons, as they certainly do help. It's just to point out that the starter weapons are pretty strong by themselves. Once I finish beating up this hippo, I get a stance break buff and move along. So far, the storm has been pushing us to a final circle where we will fight the first main boss of the run. To start, some random hands spawned, and once we're done with those, the main boss appears, and for this run, it was the Centipede Demon. As a boss, he is really not that threatening, as you can probably tell. As long as you are prepared enough to fight, you should be more than fine. Besides the smaller centipedes that appear when you chop off his limbs, you can kind of just overwhelm him with abilities until you win. Alright, now that we have defeated the boss, I got a pretty cool dormant power, and it's the ability to make a lightning bolt strike whenever I use my dodge roll. It also looked like the other Wilder on my team also got this ability, so that's always fun. Now begins day 2, where the storm disappears and we are free to explore the map once more, but any locations we have looted remain looted. However, we do get the chance to check out the places we didn't get to before. First, we went up this rise, and at the top of each of them resides a soul-like thing that lets you choose a reward, and again I went with a passive boost as the other options were not that appealing. Next, we found a dragon as a field boss that we were clearly over-prepared for, and he turned out to be a great enemy. Great enemies still give you a choice, but the selection is usually much better, and in this case I got the Helpin' Steeple greatsword, which is absolutely perfect for my build, and so I immediately changed my weapon. As you can see, it's purple this time, and that is because of its epic rarity, and that means you have to be at least level 9 to use it. The other two rarities besides common are rare, that requires you to be level 3, and legendary, that requires you to be level 12. Now we stumbled upon some flame chariots, and here you can see how the increased mobility is helpful as it lets me get to the critical spot with ease, and so we cleared the camp quickly and got a passive buff as a reward. Next, we all make sure to hit this church to secure another flask upgrade as they are key in surviving the longer fights. After that, we find another camp with flame chariots, and again we quickly dispose of them using their critical spots. A lot of the time, camps will go just like this, quick and efficient and definitely not much of a challenge. This is because a lot of this game focuses on how fast you can do something rather than just straight up how hard the fight is. Some fights will take longer and be more threatening, but some, like these chariots, are designed to be gone through very quickly. Here's an example of the increased mobility where I find a torrent jump spot that of course does not require torrent. These can be found all across the map, pretty much anywhere where there's a cliff you can't scale yourself. The next camp we found has another Sanguine Noble who lives for about 5 seconds before giving me yet another damage negation buff, and yes, all these buffs are adding up quickly. From here we go on to clear another camp and a castle in order to stack as many buffs as possible and level up as much as we can before tackling the second night boss. This is because this is the only time we have left to wander around and get stronger, as after we beat the second night boss, the third day is just a walk up to the final Night Lord. Here, as a reward, you can see I picked the Banished Knight's Greatsword as it's a pretty good weapon and it lets me do the super broken Greatsword jump attack that is just as potent as it was in Elden Ring. Next, we found a clue for an overworld boss, and it was Loretta. We did have to go into the storm to beat her, but like I said earlier, it's really not much of a threat and we beat her quickly anyway. I got a better second greatsword out of it, so I was happy. Also here you can see that I stopped at the site of grace. Even when I'm in the storm, it heals me, so again, not much of a threat. At this next site of grace, I level up to level 15, which I later learned is actually the max level you can be. Then, using this spirit tree, I flew down to the boss area just for fun, as there isn't any fall damage in this game, so I could have just jumped. We are clearly here early, but with no other camps nearby, we just spin around while we wait, and no, I don't know these people. Now it is time for the pre-boss enemies, which were quickly disposed of to reveal Morgott. I'm not going to lie to you, this fight is hard to watch. We just bullied him until he disappeared. The combinations of stuns and stance breaks paired with the sheer amount of damage we were dealing was just plain sad for him. In terms of the fight itself, it's just plain old Morgott, but he is given some cool new blood slash moves that you sadly don't see in this clip because we just bullied him too hard. After beating him, me and my team collect our well-deserved rewards and ascend to day 3, which is the final boss. Here you are able to level up, buy things from the merchant, or upgrade your weapons if you have the right smithing stones. I just buy some boiled crab and that's enough for me. Now it is time for the final boss, the Night Lord, who we have been preparing for this entire run. This boss is Gladius, Beast of the Night, and is the first completely new boss in this network test, as the Centipede Demon is again from Dark Souls 1. He is a 3-headed dog that wields a whip sword thing on his back. Here you can see the elite gameplay strategy of spamming stance breaks, which proved quite effective. Clearly, however, he had enough, and proceeded to split into 3 smaller dogs, and this is where the fight gets more interesting. Now all of us have a separate enemy to fight until they all combine again. It's not really a big deal as we have 3 players, but I can see how it could be annoying for a solo player. I'm using my claw shot ability a lot because it's very helpful for closing distances fast, and it has a pretty cool follow-up attack if you're using a greatsword. Also, you can see how fast the cooldown for it really is as I use it over and over again. Now the dogs combine again, and we are back to fighting one big boss together. In this form, he likes to swing his whip sword around in order to pose a threat to all of us at once, so it is something I need to watch out for. Also, something to mention, sprinting itself does not take any stamina, but Going from walking to sprinting does take a lot, and so you might see I go in a lot to attack and just don't have the stamina, and that's because I'm not fully used to this new mechanic draining all of my stamina if I'm not careful. With that, we beat the boss and are given these stones. These are able to be equipped to individual heroes back in the round table hold, and then are permanent buffs on your character throughout the run. They can vary from being very basic buffs to changing the Ash of War on your starting weapon, to even giving you unique attacks to your hero like my Fire Sword follow-up attack on Wilder. They're a pretty cool addition and allow you to have some sort of guaranteed customization for your character before starting a new run. Alright, that wraps up the breakdown. This run took around 35 to 40 minutes, and I'd say that 45 minutes is the general estimate for how long the average run takes. I hope you all enjoyed the breakdown, and if you have anything else you want me to cover, let me know as I have plenty of footage to share. Also, if you got to play the network test, let me know how your experience was, and if you want to know more about what I thought about the game, I have another video covering my thoughts and opinions. With that, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and until next time.